All right, YouTube, the day has come where I'm actually going to make my custom AC lines to go on my V8 swapped S10 over there. Got that 2001 Tahoe engine in there, and I've got a Sanden 508 compressor that I've put right on top here. And I've got everything. I just got done changing the evaporator coil. That's why everything's all crazy and thrown up here. But I figure this is like the perfect time to come in here and attach the line right down there, since everything is nice and open and I've got perfect access to it. But the first thing I'm going to need to do is go ahead and, I guess, cut this end of my line off. So here's my plan. And I don't know if it's a great plan or a terrible plan, but I think it's going to work either way. So what I did was I went ahead and bought the factory AC lines that go to the evaporator and condenser, and then run up to the compressor for my S10. Now what that did for me was gave me 2 lengths of hose the proper size, and gave me the 2 proper fittings to go into my condenser and my evaporator core, right? So what do I need to do from there? Well, I need to cut this part off because I'm not going to use it, and then I've got to press 2 new fittings on that are going to go on my compressor. So I went to coldhose.com, bought the fittings. It was about 30 bucks with shipping. Each fitting was about 9 bucks, and then shipping was like another $9. So I guess about $27-ish. This part here was about $60 shipped to my house. I got that at Advanced Auto Parts. You can get it at other locations as well. And then this tool right here was about $120. I think I got that on eBay. And that's what's going to allow me to crimp my new fittings onto the hose. So the first thing I'm going to do, like I said, is go ahead and just cut off these 2 ends here. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the fitting on my condenser, put the fitting on my evaporator. And then from there, I'm going to go ahead and put everything back together so I know where I need to route my lines, because I wanted to route, in a way where it's not touching all this stuff, and with this stuff just all thrown up all over the hood, or all over the engine rather. I don't know exactly where these hoses need to go, but I'm going to go ahead and connect the one to the condenser because everything's apart and it's going to be easier. So step 1, cut that end off and attach the hose to the condenser. So just a little side note, this kit that I got on eBay for the crimping, or the crimping tool to crimp the fittings, also came with this little cutter, and it made quick work of removing that part. Another thing I was a little bit nervous about was making sure I got the right size fittings, and as you can see, these things fit on there perfectly. They're perfect. Look at that. Just the right size. Perfect. The other one fits just as well. Here, I'll show you. Look at that, look at that. That is a good fit. Just slides right on. Look at that. We'll crimp those bad boys down and we'll have ourselves a good seal, it looks like. Okay, so what I've done is actually looking back at this, since I wanted to route this up to the back side of the compressor and use that 180-degree turn to come down to it. And actually thinking back to it, I think it would be better to have both of those that way. That way I could have the other line come down and wrap up and go, sorry about that, come down, wrap around this way, and then go right in to that, because that's a straight fitting come out of there. But I'll figure out a way to make it work. But this has this little 90-degree out and then has an angle, so I just had it come out right here, and I apologize if this is difficult to see. I wrapped it around up this way, put a couple of zip ties to keep it clear of the exhaust, put that heat shield on it. Actually, the heat shield was on it, I just moved it to this area. But I think that's going to work out just fine because it comes right up to the back of the compressor, which is where I need it to go. So I'm going to go ahead and snug this down and go ahead and put my fender and everything back in place. All right, YouTube, so after relocating the battery to the rear of the truck, I used this little power distribution box, ran a cable all the way to the back, and used the actual factory tray to fabricate a battery tray in the rear. I'll take you around and show it real quick so you can see what I'm working with. Don't mind the damaged rear end. Freaking somebody rear-ended me a couple weeks ago. I'm working on that. But right under there is where you can see I welded in the battery tray. Put a little fuse right there, just behind the frame rail there. And all these wires are in the way. I'll come around the other side. There you can kind of see it a little better. Got a little battery tray welded up. Just use some angle iron to weld it up to that little cross member. So the battery is relocated. But what that did was gave me room to run this hose right here and then up around this way. That's a little bit less than ideal, but with the battery there, that would not have happened. So I went ahead and rerouted that. But now that I have all my hoses in position, there's a little tight clearance here, but I think we've got enough room, especially once I bolt this down. It'll stay in position pretty good. So I think this one I can actually clamp in place. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And again, I've got that tool right here that I got on, I think eBay or Amazon, I don't remember. But let's go ahead and crimp. I'm gonna crimp this one, and then I'm gonna come back and crimp this one later, because I'm gonna crimp this one while it's in place. That way I don't have to worry about the hose rotating, or the hose end rotating on the hose and getting out of, it needs to be clocked the right direction. So I'm just gonna clamp it in place, that one, then I'll move that one out of the way. I'm gonna put a little painter's tape on this one right around here to hold it in the correct position. And then I'll pull that one up and crimp that one into position. So let's get this done. So the first thing you need to know is what size hose you're working on. This is a number 12. This is a number 8 on this side. So make sure you grab the proper size die. So make sure you're using the right die on the tool. So basically you just pull this pin out, put your dies in. You just want to center the little notches with the pins on here. Easier said than done. There we go. So that one's in. Get the other side in. It looks like it's kind of easier if you do one side and then the other. So go ahead and stick in one side. Kind of push it over to get the center in as this pin is hitting the daggone truck. There we go. And that's seated in. So from here, just clamp it around your hose, insert your pin to hold it in position. And make sure you get it properly on the collar lined up, and then just start clamping it down. So this is actually my first time using this tool. I've got it crimped down. I've got it to the point where it's giving me a pretty good resistance on the handle to pump it. So I'm gonna go ahead and release the pressure and check my progress here. See what we got. So I think that might actually need just a little bit more crimping. That doesn't quite look crimped enough, so I'm gonna give it a little bit more pressure, but I think we're just about there. I'm gonna make sure to position the notches right where they were the last time so it continues to press in the same spot. There we go. Give it a few more good pumps with that resistance. We should be good. Okay, let's check it now. So I think that's a pretty good crimp. I don't think we're gonna have a leak there. I think we're good. So I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the next hose. So actually, if I compare that to this crimped hose, this one's actually pressed in quite a bit further. I'm gonna see if I can get this pushed in a little more, get it to look a little bit more like that one. Because the indentations here aren't too terribly deep, so I'm gonna keep going with it. Okay, so that gave me some pretty good resistance there. Let's check it again. That looks a lot better. I'm happier with that. That is actually a pretty good squeeze on there. So I think that's probably good. Let's move on to the next hose. Okay, so what I've done here now is I've made sure I've got this swung over a little bit, made sure the hose is fully pressed up into the fitting and clocked in the proper angle that I want it. I'm gonna take some painter's tape here, or masking tape, or whatever terminology you wanna use. I'm just gonna kind of tape this into position here so it doesn't move around on me. I don't want that swiveling inside that fitting once I remove it, because I'm gonna have to pull it off there to actually get the tool around it. There's not enough room to get the tooling in there with the hose connected to the compressor. So again, putting some tape here to hold it in position. And I can crimp it with the tape on there. It's not going to hurt anything. It'll mess up the tape, but I mean, I'm going to take the tape off anyways. So try to pull that up a little to get a little more room to work. I'm going to change out my dies for the number 8 hose. So I've got my dies and my tooling. Let's go ahead and get this thing crimped up. There we go, we're in. Get this thing centered on the collar and get it crimped down. Okay, that's about as far as it's going to go down, so let's check it. Okay, looks like we've got a good crimp here. I'm going to call that good. I'm going to pull out this tape and go ahead and put my my hoses back on my compressor. Also, make sure you lubricate your O-rings with some mineral oil. You can buy mineral oil like at CVS or Walgreens or whatever. You want that lubricated before you put these connections together. So next, it's time to evacuate and charge the system, but we got this part here done, crimping up the hoses and everything. One thing to note here is it looks like this one, I maybe should have moved that a little over this way, but I think it'll be okay. I think that should be fine. But just one thing to note there, you see how this one looks a lot cleaner in that respect. So just a heads up there. Okay guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope this kind of gives you a little bit of insight as to what you've got to do to get your AC lines run for your S10. This could have been done a little differently, I think. If you can find out what size this connection is, you can maybe come out with a 90 degree here and come down with a 180 degree on this one coming down. That way it just kind of goes down into this area, sort of like this one. And you might have a little bit more clearance there instead of having to come around this way with the battery in the way and all that stuff. I wanted to relocate my battery anyways. I just didn't know I was going to do it for my AC. But I think it ended up working out. So hope this gives you a little insight. I'll post the part numbers for the hoses and the fittings and everything that I used in the description. Actually, I'll embed it right in a video. That way you guys can see it. I also have a little video showing the hood clearance with these connections. It's kind of tight, but it works. So make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and make sure you follow me, guys. Thank you very much.